Disney is betting big by taking a Disney Plus TV show and trying to refit it into their next big animated feature only at theaters. Moana 2 is tracking at over a $100 million opening. That's not as much as Inside Out 2, still pretty great for Disney. Let's talk about what that might mean for the future of Disney in Burbank, and it might not actually be good. Let's talk about that on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and here with me is animation connoisseur, Mr. VashSky. Vash, do you like the cartoons?
I like the cartoons. I very much do. But I will say, though, I've been having a fondness for the cartoons out east, that being anime, that I have with the Western cartoons. Unfortunately, oh boy, Jonas, they've had some problems in recent years.
But so what you're saying is you like the boom anime babes that make you think the wrong thing? I think it's funny. Anyways, Moana 2, here out of Deadline. Let's talk about this. Well, she is kind of Eastern. She's a Pacific Islander. Moana 2 to catch a big wave over Thanksgiving with potential $100 million plus 5-day opening, $75 million plus 3-day box office early look. This by Anthony D'Alessandro there from Deadline. Disney's Moana 2 landed on long lead tracking Friday morning and is looking to do 100 million plus over its Wednesday through Sunday opening during Thanksgiving week, 75 to 82 of that during its Friday to Sunday portion. These figures come from tracking service Quorum. I'm wondering if they do have a quorum over there. The first Moana in 2016 opened to 82 million over 5 days, ultimately grossing 250 million stateside. Now, I think it probably cost them between 150 and 250 to make Moana 2, and then to market Moana 2 was obviously more. So this is the thing, and this is I need you all to stick with me when I say this. Moana was a flop, but most Disney films are flops because they are not making films in order to make money at the box office. They sure do like it when movies make money at the box office at Disney. But I'm going to bring up a movie that I almost always bring up when we're talking about animation. I don't know that Disney realized what they had on their hands when they made Snow White. And they have been able to market and merchandise Snow White for almost 100 years. So Hercules, an excellent example of a film that was definitely a flop, but they're going to be doing a live action remake here. So this is okay. When a film for Disney does not make its money back at the box office in the first week, it's not a big deal. Moana is currently the biggest movie in stream. Well, it might not be currently. It was last year the biggest movie in streaming, and might still be the biggest movie in streaming. So that is, I'm going to say, Moana, a success, just not using the standard metrics. Vash, did what I say make sense? You have any questions there that I need to answer for the audience?
I can kind of see what you're saying right there. I think the worldwide box office for Moana when it originally came out was $686 million. That's nowhere near the billion, let's say, of like Frozen, for example. But you can kind of see how the company feels about it and its maybe long-term prospects when you think of how they've incorporated into the parks, for example. I mean, they've really ushered in Moana in a big way all over the parks division, whether it comes to either domestic parks or even international parks. And while we haven't gotten a definitive Moana attraction just yet, we have a plethora of stage shows. We know it's a consumer products driver for them, and we've also seen like the overlay and installation of pieces like at the Polynesian, for example, via Moana. So that to me has always told me what the company thinks about a certain property and its revenue generating potential.
Right. So when you say definitive version, I'm assuming that you're saying Journey of Water inspired by Moana is not the definitive Moana attraction.
No, I would say not. I think a lot of people are looking forward to what might come from the Moana universe in terms of a really for real attraction. But if you want to say Journey of Water with a Moana homage, I'm
Exactly.
stuck into it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not good.
So let's get back to this forecast here. If the Moana 2 forecast stays firm, it's a fantastic comeback for Disney, which has typically owned the Thanksgiving Day stretch with all mass animated films, but hasn't seen any big breakout since 2019 Frozen 2, which did 125 million, the biggest take for any movie playing over the Thanksgiving holiday in the US and Canada. 125 million, can't help but notice that that is above 100 million. Also,
Mhm.
Frozen 2, that obviously coming out in 2019, the price of movie tickets has gone up since then. I would say maybe even more than 25%. So this is actually quite the decline for Disney at this point. I get it. I'm stating this how it is, not how we want it to be. I don't want anybody to misinterpret what I'm saying here. But Moana is the biggest thing at Disney right now, and it's
Yes.
going to be doing less than Frozen 2. Also, the person in charge of Frozen has been demoted from head of Disney Animation down to just the director of Frozen 3 and the writer of Frozen 4. I almost lose track of how many Frozens have come out. Says one industry executive observing the hot under 25 female figures. Well, that sounds like an executive who's looking to get himself in trouble. On Moana 2, this is the Frozen crowd. Currently, men are lagging on Moana 2, but no bother, they were lagging on Inside Out 2. And that Disney pick went on to debut at 154 million, the second biggest domestic box office opening of 2024. I'm going to guess that it was Deadpool and Wolverine that beat it out. These Moana 2 projections line up with the success of the marketing materials we've seen so far. Ooh, the sequel's first trailer became Disney's most watched ever for an animated movie, clocking 178 million. See, these are essentially meaningless here unless they tie them to a specific platform. It's very easy to fudge the numbers on a platform like TikTok. There's literally zero accountability for views on TikTok. Back in February, Disney CEO Bob Iger announced that Moana 2 was happening, spawned from its development as a Disney Plus series. The sequel is directed by, and when it was announced as being directed by Dave Derrick Jr. Then quietly they added Jason Hand, who is I don't want to say he's the head of Burbank, but he's in charge of the Burbank studio here. Dave Derrick is in charge of Moana 2 at the Vancouver studio. This would be the first feature animation at the Vancouver studio that has been set up. Also, a bit of a surprise to the Burbank people to find out that the Vancouver studio had been staffed up. And Dana Ledoux Miller, because of our research here on That Park Place, we were able to figure out that first of all, she was the screenwriter on the live action Moana. Some of her comments in the past indicated she did not want to be working on the Moana Disney Plus series or on Moana 2. And all of a sudden, she's working in animation as a director right after she said, I would really like to have some director within the next year. And just a few days later, they announced that she's the director of Moana 2, along with these two other people. With music
Yeah.
by Abigail Barlow and Emily Bear. By the way, Barlow and Bear, I've listened to some of their stuff. They're obviously very talented, and they at least in comparison to Ariana DeBose, is not Ariana DeBose, whoever wrote the music for Wish. Wish does not sound like Disney music, and also doesn't sound like Lin-Manuel Miranda. They went for a pop feel in that one. Barlow and Bear at least know what Broadway is supposed to sound like, so there's hope here. And Opatai Faoi, forgive me on the pronunciation, and Mark Mancina. Lin-Manuel Miranda is not attached to this film, despite the fact that he is currently working for Disney. Ali Carvalho and Dwayne Johnson are coming back. So I don't know. I think Disney will make its money back on this one. What do you think, Vash?
I don't know if I'm as convinced, because the thing is I'm sure that it's been a Herculean effort to get it past the finish line after it was originally adapted for, was it Disney Plus, and then turned into a series. I'm sorry, turned into a movie from the series for theatrical release. I don't know if it's gonna make the amount of money I think that the Walt Disney Company expects. I'll put it that way. And if we look at like Inside Out 2, for instance, here on the numbers, obviously 1.69, which is absolutely massive for this. But the debut for this, the first weekend was 154, not 100 or 75 for the 3 day. So the fact that you have a franchise that is arguably much larger than Inside Out, not even getting what 2/3 on the 5 day, what Inside Out 2 actually received. And again, these are early projections. They could be more, they could be less. I'm just saying that should be a lot higher. And I think there were other studios that actually took note and expected it to be higher. This is why Moana 2, for instance, coming out in November 27, 2024, that was the same day as Wicked was going to come out, but then they actually moved their release timeline up a week, November 22nd, 2024, believing that Moana 2 is going to dominate that box office. I don't know if it necessarily is. And here's the thing, with Wicked coming out the week before, now you're going to have to struggle for PLFs. And so that might eat into that box office more. If Wicked proves to be a huge success, theaters are not going to be scrambling to get as many PLFs as possible for Moana 2. They might be contractually obligated to give over some, but not all. And we can see that Moana 2 thrust out there for Wicked as it goes on right there. Like you said, Lin-Manuel Miranda, how in the world is he attached to the prequel to the 2019 Lion King and not Moana 2? How does that even make sense?
That's bizarre. It's because it started out as a Disney Plus show, and they weren't going to waste him on a Disney Plus show. They weren't going to put that much budget into it, and now they're putting all their budget into. I'm sure they called him too to say, "Hey, you got any extra Moana songs?" That's the thing I'm really surprised out that they didn't just say, "Oh, we've got this one line just sitting here that we didn't use on the first one that we're going to go ahead and use on the second one." Now here are the real implications of this, and this is the thing that may affect Disney animation forever. If this is not successful, okay, Disney will move on, and it's not great. If it is successful, it will show that a production led in a brand new studio outside of the United States is more successful than the Burbank studio. Now, Burbank has been brought into the fold after the fact, but this is not good for the Burbank office if all of a sudden Disney Animation Vancouver, which I don't know. I don't know everything that's going on here. And when I say this, people always have pause at it. The studio is not as tied down ideologically as the Burbank studio, the heart of California. Now, I understand Vancouver is a very woke city in and of itself, but I'm hearing that it is a more, at least for now, merit-based application up there in Vancouver. It's also not the studio that Walt founded. So there may be greater implications here. There's also a discussion about DreamWorks and outsourcing and what is or is not happening with DreamWorks outsourcing that could be had, Sony Pictures Animation, and who might be working on some of their upcoming films. Whatever. We might talk about that at another day. But if this is very successful, then it will be a vote of confidence for Disney outsourcing more of their productions outside of the United States, which has its good and its bad sides. So I want to ask you, Vash, what do you think about that? Is this good for Disney, the studio, to not the original Disney studio, vanilla Disney? There's a loaded term for you, to not be the ones in charge of this.
I don't like it. I'm just going to be forthright about that. I mean, people will talk about, before the Renaissance era, they were moved out of the Burbank studios that Walt had built after Snow White, that he built specifically for the animators. Then they moved to Glendale, and they moved back to Burbank in a brand new building and so forth. So it really isn't quite the studio that Walt built. I would say that the culture, though, it did evolve during that time. I think it was maintained to some degree. I think the culture for the current Disney studios has been completely upended by Jennifer Lee. And so I think the only way to get back to even a semblance of that was to look outward. So I don't like it just from a historian's perspective. I think they should be in Burbank. I think they should have had that consistency. But I think that time has passed. And the well has been so poisoned that you might have to develop a new studio with a new culture like they're doing with Vancouver. In that way, we can be we can be more excited about what's coming out with Moana 2. At the same time, though, I mean, this is really, they're putting them in a very unenviable position with decisions that they've made regarding this whole thing.
Yep, I totally agree. Now we want to throw this to our commenters, and I want to know, what do you think about this? Is this good that everything is being, well, partially wrestled out of the hands of the Burbank studio, or is this something that a historic studio is now having their namesake stripped away from them? I don't know. It's very complicated, as many things often actually are. There is nuance here, and I'm asking for nuance from a YouTube comment section. So let's see what we get here. I would love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Of course, like this video if you like this video, and if you wouldn't mind, consider subscribing to That Park Plays for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media account.